Morning. Tonight, I'll be guiding you through a calming sleep story to help you unwind, quiet your mind, and gently drift off to sleep. The year is 1942 in Limerick, when ration books ruled the cupboard, blankets were shared, and fleas were unavoidable. We'll be following the day of a little girl growing up in a world where coal is pinched from the streets and cabbage is always on the boil. But before we begin, I just want to say this channel is run by me alone. I write, record, and edit everything myself. So if you do enjoy this and you want to hear more, please do like and subscribe, and it would mean a lot. Now, wherever you are, whether you're in the bed, on the sofa, or tucked into your favourite blanket, just take a moment to let your body soften. You don't need to do anything. Just get comfortable, lie back, and let the words wash over you. Take a moment now to bring your attention to your breath. Inhale slowly through your nose, letting the air fill your lungs with calm. Hold it there for a second, and then exhale gently through your mouth, releasing any tension you've been holding on to. Again, breathe in slow and deep, and let it go even slower, feeling your body begin to soften with each breath. There's nothing to do, nowhere to be, just the quiet rise and fall of your breath, like waves lapping gently on a distant shore. Let that rhythm carry you deeper into stillness. As you listen, your thoughts may begin to wander, and that's okay. This is your time to relax, reset, and let go of the day. Whenever you're ready, take a deep breath, and let's begin. I woke up stuck to my brother again, not on purpose. We'd both sweated through the same scratchy blanket in the night. It wasn't one of those lovely big beds with the soft sheets and feather pillows. No. Ours was an old clattery frame that creaked if you so much as blinked, with a mattress that smelled like damp pennies and every cold winter that had ever happened. There were 4 of us crammed in, me, my brother next to me, and the twins curled at the end of the bed like a pair of sleepy kittens. You couldn't move an inch without someone letting out a moan or a groan. The rain tapped soft on the glass and leaked in through the crack in the window. It slowly dripped down into an old biscuit tin we'd left just under, tapping like a clock with no hurry. Mum said she'd patch it with newspaper and holy water, but that was weeks ago. I could hear her downstairs, clanging about in the kitchen, boiling yesterday's socks, no doubt, in the same dented pot she uses to make stew. The air in the room was thick with the smell of wool, wet feet, and cabbage long past its prime. You had to breathe shallow, or don't breathe at all. I stayed under the blanket for a bit longer, letting myself pretend I was somewhere else, somewhere warm, with a thick duvet, like the ones you see in the catalogues, vague and fluffy, where you disappear inside and don't come out until Easter. Maybe even a pair of slippers, the nice ones, lined up waiting by the bed, soft as clouds. But we didn't have slippers. We had lino floors so cold they could crack your toes, and one pair of shoes between the lot of us that still had its sole intact. Today was my turn on the shoe, so I wriggled out from under the blanket and touched my feet to the floor, slowly, like the ground was made of ice. The cold climbed straight up my legs. I didn't make a sound. The twins were only small, just 5, and still sound asleep. My younger brother stirred a little, but he didn't wake. He wasn't coming with me this morning. Said he'd a pain in his stomach, or maybe in his neck, or both. I'd heard him whispering to Mam last night, trying to sound sick enough to stay home, and she'd let him. Probably knew he was lying, but she let him. I shuffled down the hall, quiet as I could, hunting for the one good shoe. The other foot would have to go to the war bare. And that's how the day began. Half dressed, half frozen, half asleep, getting ready in the hush of the grey morning. And now I'm going to take you with me, out the door, up the hill, and into the day you won't soon forget. But don't worry, we'll take it slow. You're safe and warm, and all you have to do is listen. I found the shoe by the stove, still a bit damp and smelling faintly of turf and feet. Mam had left it there to dry. It was the only one with the sole that didn't flap when you walked, and it was mine for the day. I didn't rush. Nothing moved too fast in that kind of cold. I slipped it on, pushed the door open with a gentle creak, and stepped into the grey morning. The rain had eased to a soft mist, but the ground was slick and puddled. I walked slow up Bark Hill, careful not to slide on the stones, one foot bare and the other squelching softly. The world was quiet in its own way, muffled by the damp. My breath came in little clouds, and my fingers curled into my sleeves. I passed the soup queue outside O'Malley's, men standing, waiting, with their hands in their pockets, shoulders hunched against the drizzle. One fella cradled in a tin of broth like it was made of gold. I watched the steam rise from it, soft and curling. It looked like the warmest thing in the world. Then a clatter from up the road. Mrs. Kearney tearing after her dog in her dressing gown, slippers in hand, roaring like she meant it. The dog had her best petticoat in its teeth, trotting around proud as anything. Even with the cold, I smiled. She nearly got him, but not quite. Eventually, I reached the school gates. The walls ran with rainwater, and the windows were misted from the inside. I stepped into the cloakroom, where wet coats steamed quietly on their hooks, and the air smelled of turf and smoke and chalk. We hung everything on a single row of crooked nails, and my sleeve brushed past someone else's damp cuff. It didn't matter. We were all cold, all wet, all quiet. We found our seats, and the soft tap of the raindrops on the window made the room feel still. For a moment, I let myself drift, half listening to Sister Eileen's voice in the background, half imagining I was somewhere warmer, with a woolen shawl around my shoulders and a biscuit in my pocket. They called it a school, but really it was a stone room with no heat, a dripping ceiling, and a desk so old the names carved into it had started to fade into one another like ghosts. Sister Agnes stood at the front like a statue someone had forgotten to dust. She had the face of someone who'd never once laughed, not even as a baby. She said my handwriting looked like I was possessed. I whispered to my friend. She snorted into her sleeve and got a look from Miss that could melt turf. I once asked if St. Bridget had ever had fleas. Sister didn't find it funny. The leather came down sharp across my knuckles, and I bit my lip so I wouldn't cry. That was the game. Don't cry. Crying meant you'd lost. So I sat still, tried to breathe slow and small, and stared out the window at the silver threads of rain slipping down the glass. I imagined toast, real toast, warm and golden, with a knob of butter just starting to melt, and dry shoes lined up by the fire, big ones, grown-up ones, my own. But outside the rain kept falling, and the cold found its way under the desk, under the socks, under everything. And Sister kept talking, and the chalk kept breaking, and the day went on. After school was done, Mam was out, off trying to trade old rags for a lump of dripping down by the quay. She said if the butcher was in a good mood, he might throw the string it came wrapped in. So it was just me and my little brother, left to figure out dinner with 2 mismatched spoons and a whole lot of imagination. We found a handful of flour at the bottom of the tin and tried mixing it with water like Mam did when she made pancakes at St. Bridget's. Ours didn't look the same, or smell the same, or taste the same. It was stuck to the pan so bad we had to throw the pan out the window. It made a clatter in the alley, and the neighbour's dog started barking like we dropped gold. Still, we were laughing. Quiet, wheezy laughs as to not disrupt the twins. My brother wiped flour on his face and said he was a ghost from the famine. I said if he didn't sit down, I'd turn him into one. A knock came at the door. It was old Mrs. Hanrahan from next door, smelling of smoke and cat. She pressed half a boiled potato into my hand and a sweet from her apron pocket that looked like it had seen a few winters. I was suspicious, but I ate it anyway. The best part? Dad wasn't home yet, which meant no shouting, no clattering chairs, no belt hung on the back of the door. Just peace. Quiet. And the 4 of us, warm from laughing, our stomachs not quite full, but not empty either. I laid back on the cold floor and let my eyes slip half shut, listening to the rain and waiting for Mom's knock at the door. The light outside had gone blue, the kind that means you've just a few minutes before the night drops all at once. Me and my brother stayed quiet, watching the window for Mam. When she finally came through the door, her hair was soaked from the rain. We'd both let out a breath we didn't realise we were holding. She gave us a look like she was about to scold us for something, then spotted the pan missing from the hook and muttered, "I don't even want to know." But there was a smile tugging at her mouth all the same. Mom had got the turf fire going, even though it didn't want to catch. She knelt down and blew on it with all her might till her face turned pink. Eventually, it puffed up a little bit, sent a cloud of smoke hurling into the room like a ghost that couldn't be bothered. Didn't matter, it was the only bit of heat we'd had all day. We all crowded close, noses nearly touching, trying to soak it in. And then, as if that wasn't enough excitement, it was knit check night. Mam sat me down on the stool by the fire and combed through my hair with her vinegar-soaked knit comb with the scratchy metal teeth. I hissed and winced and told her she was pulling my scalp clean off. She said, "Sure, you'd cry if the wind changed." And then she smacked my shoulder with love and said, "Hold still or I'll make none of you." The twins were half asleep now in Mam's lap, heads lolling like wet leaves. My brother tried to sneak away before it was his turn with the comb, but she caught him by the collar and gave him the same treatment. You'd think we were being skinned alive the way we carried on. And then Predictably, the door banged open. Dad stumbled in, soaked from the pub, singing half of the parting glass and dragging one boot behind him like it wasn't part of his body. He was cradling a jar of pickled eggs like it was a newborn, which he promptly dropped when he tried to open the dog's dish. The eggs rolled in every direction. My brother dived for one like it was treasure. I wasn't that brave. Dad landed in the chair, boot still on, eyes already shut, and his mouth hung open, mid-verse. Mom stared at him for a second and then turned back to the fire and said, "Sure, he's harmless when he's horizontal." She threw another sod of turf on the fire and gave me a wink. We didn't say anything else, just watching the flames dance, feeling the heat on our cheeks and letting the quiet settle in. The fire had burned itself down to a low, sleepy flicker, just shadows dancing lazily across the walls now. Mam stood over the hearth, hands on her hips, watching the turf crumble onto itself. She didn't say much, just nodded once, like she was satisfied enough with what little warmth it gave off. Better than nothing anyway. She scooped up the twins, one under each arm, limp as dishcloths, and carried them upstairs with the quiet strength only tired mothers have. My brother and I stayed behind just a bit longer, sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring into the glow like it might tell us something about tomorrow. The room still smelled of vinegar and turf, and the jar of pickles Dad dropped was slowly leaking across the floorboards, but no one had the energy to clean it up. It'll wait. Dad was slumped sideways in Mam's armchair, one boot still on, snoring through his phone like a pig with a cold. My brother tried to tug it off, gave up halfway, and just tossed the rag over him. "Let him sleep," he mumbled. "He's harmless when he's horizontal." We didn't laugh. We were too far past tired for laughing. I rubbed my eyes with the heels of my hands and stood up, bones cracking like twigs. We moved through the house, slow and quiet, like it might fall down if we had too much noise. The stairs groaned with every step, and the hallway smelled like damp socks. Upstairs, the air was colder. That slap of night against your cheek makes you flinch. I ducked my head low and crawled into bed without ceremony, just lifted the corner of the scratchy blanket and slid in like a letter through a slot. The mattress was lumpy and dipped in the middle, so you always ended up stuck to whoever was heaviest. Tonight it was my brother, and he smelled like smoke and fried flour. The twins were already out cold at the foot of the bed, tangled together like worms. One of them twitched in his sleep, and the other let out a noise like a hiccup. I shushed them gently, though they didn't hear it. My feet were still damp from the puddles earlier. I rubbed them against the hem of my nightdress, which had more holes than cloth by now, and tucked them up underneath the blanket as far as they'd go. It didn't help much. The cold seemed to have made home in my bones tonight. I lay on my back, staring up at the ceiling. There was a damp patch in the corner that looked like the Virgin Mary if you squinted. I liked to look at her and pretend she was watching over us, though I wasn't convinced she'd hang around in a place like this. Someone's elbow landed in my side, my baby brother's, sharp and pointy as ever. I nudged him off me with a grunt, but he wriggled back in seconds later, hot little breath against my neck. I sighed. This was the way of things. I could hear the rain, still tapping on the window, gentle now, like a lullaby. The biscuit tin in the corner had nearly filled with drips. Mom would be cross in the morning, but for now, it was just background music, peaceful in a way. I closed my eyes and let myself sink into the sounds of the house. The snuffle of the twins, the wind squeezing through the cracks, the floorboard settling with a groan, all familiar, all mine. My toes gone numb, I whispered, more to the darkness than anything else. But at least the fleas are quiet tonight, my brother replied to my surprise. I smiled. One small mercy. No scratching, no whining, no Mam flicking the light back on to chase them with the vinegar comb. The world narrowed down to the warmth of one shared blanket, the weight of my brother's arm across my belly, the soft rise and fall of sleeping breath. I folded my hands under my chin and whispered the same prayer I always did. Dear God, let tomorrow be sunny. Let Mam find something nice at the shops. Let Dad come home smiling instead of singing. Let the twins not wake up crying. And if it's not too much, maybe let there be butter, real butter, on real toast, thick enough to leave teeth marks. I paused and then add, and dry socks please, amen. And with that, I close my eyes and drift into the hush, dreaming of toast and trees that grow butter and a morning where everything's just a little bit softer. Sure, it'll be grand in the morning.